behalf of Crosscheck Media and Biz Talk Today TV, welcome everyone to BTT's special report on the war in Iran. We have continuing breaking wall-to-wall coverage all day today talking about this story because we're covering everything when it comes to energy, trading, government, and policy. And I have the expert with me right now, Jake Novak. He is the host of the morning of the, you're going to have to tell the audience on this one, Jake, but I know you're with WABC Radio, but more importantly, you are the actual expert when it comes to discussions of this subject. Jake, let's just start talking with it right now. Everybody wants to know in the country, after Midnight Hammer, we took away their nuclear capabilities in Iran, yet there was some type of negotiation that was taking place. They were supposed to have follow-through conversations this week, which I'd imagine have been called off. And then we start bombing. Why?
You know what? The talks actually were the reason for it. You know, it was one thing for Iran to drag its feet and play games here and there, but to come to the table and consistently lie to the American negotiators and then start in with demands of their own really angered them. You know, that scene in The Godfather where Michael Corleone is sitting at the Italian restaurant with the Turk and Captain McCluskey. And we know, we're looking at him as a character, and we know that he's there planning to kill them both. But you can tell he's still kind of debating it in his own mind. But hearing the guy talk and hearing them go on and on clearly just enrages him more. And then he goes into the bathroom and gets the gun, and we know what happens. I think that's kind of what happened here. I think that the United States was preparing for all of this, but it depended a lot on how Iran conducted itself at the talks. And it was clear that they just weren't willing to stop their long-range and medium-range missile program, which would have served as a great protector of a nuclear program. And they just weren't willing to. I mean, they were really literally standing on ceremony on that. And that's why they're dead.
Interesting. So with that, with Israel's involvement, some people are wondering if Israel actually pulled us into this conflict. But the question of the day is, how is Israel going to gauge success when it comes to this?
Well, Israel is making a priority of hitting the missile launchers. I am not whistling past the graveyard, Todd, I promise. But you have to admit, as bad as it is because we're hearing all these, we see the explosions and things like that, this isn't a really strong response from Iran. They did have, I would say, one mass casualty event. About 10 Israelis were killed in a town south of Jerusalem on Sunday. That was really sad. And all those people, it's just as bad for them to have died in the only a double-digit death toll type thing than it would be for if it were thousands. So, of course, that's terrible. But that they're going to figure out that they will consider themselves successful if they take out their missile launching capacity, which, by the way, even at full strength, isn't it telling? They have no homeland security. There's been one missile or anti-aircraft gun shot at from Iran at any of the Israeli or U.S. jets or U.S. naval vessels. That's not by accident. That's not because it was taken out. That's because they've never had a priority of protecting their own homeland. Their entire raison d'etre as a regime has been to attack and kill its neighbors. That's all they do, and they're losing their capacity to do that as well. And the last thing I'll say about just the impetus for the war is, look, I am very willing to entertain any debate about whether or not the United States should be doing this right now. That's a fair debate to have. But I will not entertain anyone who says this was unprovoked. Iran has been at full-on war with the United States for 47 years. The only argument you can make is that, well, maybe we're such a big power that there's a certain amount that we can absorb. According to President Trump, late Saturday night going into Saturday morning, late Friday night going into Saturday morning, he used the phrase, "We can't take it anymore." And we can debate whether that's true or not. But the idea that this was an unprovoked war, that the United States, that's just counterfactual. We can decide whether or not it was the right response, but to call it unprovoked is just silly.
Yeah, and at the Pentagon briefing at 8 a.m. this morning, they talked about that, how there have been several instances over those last 47 years of the Iranians causing trouble, and how the U.S. was really just sitting on its hands until now. So that leads to the question then, if they are shooting missiles or whatever they're trying to do to defend themselves, because they did launch a missile into Saudi Arabia, they hit the Kuwait airport. When you have that happening, who's making the call there? Because they don't have anybody that's leading the country, so somebody's got to be pulling the trigger, right?
Yeah, they have a lot of mid-level commanders who are frequently briefed on what to do if they don't hear from somebody by a certain time. They're told, and these missiles are pointed in a certain area. It's not like they can sort of This is not a video game where they can sort of change the location of where they're shooting them. They're planted missile launchers pointed towards certain areas, and if they don't hear from somebody after a certain time, or maybe they do get a signal, it depends one way or the other, they fire them. You can use the term indiscriminate because they don't know the pinpoint to the letter exactly where they're going to land, but they know which country, they know what the overall target is. So, for example, Iran hit a number of Palestinian areas in East Jerusalem last night in Israel. They hit a Palestinian hospital in East Jerusalem. Did they mean to do that? Well, I think that they just didn't care one way or the other. You know, it really reminded me, Todd, of a lot of people don't know this. Just before he killed himself, Hitler's last order was to flood the Berlin subway tunnels because he knew a lot of his supporters were hiding there. He said to himself, if I'm dying, they're dying. And I think Iran might be doing something along those lines, not specifically trying to target that hospital, but basically saying if the hospital is hit or Palestinians are killed, so be it. That's also good in their book. This is what we're dealing with.
So now that Saudi Arabia has been hit, Kuwait's been hit, it seems everybody's jumping in on this. And these are all members of OPEC as well. Do you see other countries entering this conflict right now, or will they just stay away and in a wait and see mode?
Well, they entered it already. You know, the Washington Post had an extraordinary report yesterday based on a number of sources, something that they don't do when they report on President Trump. But they had a number of sources on this story.
Right.
That showed that Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, and basically the ruler of Saudi Arabia, his father is very ill and doesn't really do much. He had been on the phone several times with President Trump over the past month, urging this attack. And I'll tell you something else, Todd, for our business audience here. There's a big scuttlebutt in the oil markets, which I think is pretty well established, that this war was a gift to Saudi Arabia on two levels. One, they absolutely have a very long-running war with Iran. This is the Sunni Shia 1,400-year civil war. It's been going on for that long. And even Israel, let alone the United States, are sideshows. We're not the great Satan. The great Satan, if you're a Sunni, is the Shia, and the great Satan, if you're a Shia, is a Sunni. But the other gift, Todd, was for the oil markets. Saudi Arabia needed oil prices to go higher. They've done us a lot of favors over the years, continuing oil production. You know, Todd, oil prices, light sweet crude, was at over $90 a barrel on October 6th, 2003.
Yeah.
Oil
23.
Yeah, we could have seen oil go right back to 120, 130, 140. Instead, what did the Saudis do? Everyone said, we're not going to make this worse for the United States and Israel. Oil prices went way down. We were at $59 a barrel, I think, at one point last month or in January, right? So
yeah.
We're still way below where we were during the Biden years, where in June of 2022, we were at 126 or 121, something like that. So honestly, going to 72, the Saudis needed that because they've been suffering with lower oil prices. So in a lot of ways, this was a major gift to Saudi Arabia, in addition to being a gift, I think, to the United States and, of course, Israel as well. But that is something this Washington Post report about the lobbying for the war from bin Salman is an extraordinary report. I urge everyone to read it, because from my own sources, it's a pretty accurate report. One of the rare ones that you see from the Washington Post these days, but a pretty accurate report.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So you bringing up oil, though, and you using your historical reference with Hitler, do you believe, or would you see a scenario where the Iranians would actually sabotage their oil production?
You know, that has always been a question. And it's been one of the things that's always made me laugh a little bit, how these are the most ridiculously fundamentally religious people in all the world, but don't mess with the oil business. I mean, for the most part, they keep that oil business running in Iran. So I don't know if they have. Probably that might be as a result of two things, knowing that that would be the end anyway. So maybe they just didn't want to think about that until the end. And also, the people who are running those oil facilities probably aren't as fundamentally religious and radical as the old regime. I'm going to call them the old regime now because I think they're gone. And they may be a lot less controllable in that sense.
The final question for you then. So the president is saying that this could go on for weeks. Let's hope not, but that's what he's trying to set expectations. Pete Hegseth, defense secretary, just said a couple of hours ago, we bombed over 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours. Is there anything left to keep bombing? Why is this going to last a couple of weeks is the question.
Well, you know, air wars have never completely won a war yet. They've made it a lot easier to win them in other ways. So there's that to consider. Iran has a lot of strongholds within their own country just to repress their own people, not to defend their people, but to suppress their own people. So it might take a long time because they really do want the Iranian people to feel very comfortable going back into the streets again, which is a big ask, Todd, because 65,000 to 100,000 of them were just killed at the end of last year into January. So not the easiest ask, but they need to be able to get them. Now, according to my Israeli sources, the IRGC has now been obliterated inside of Tehran. There are no more IRGC strongholds in Tehran. And now the focus for the Israeli Air Force is to hit IRGC targets in the rest of the country. They're going to have to focus. I would expect the attacks from Israel over the next 2 days to be focused on industrial areas far from Tehran, where they're hoping that factory workers and other major parts of the economy and infrastructure can be made to feel safe from IRGC retribution. So that, I think, is where we're going to see the focus for the next couple of days. But that's the answer to your question. There are a lot of IRGC installations still spread out throughout the rest of the country, and they need to be eliminated. Or we need to see some kind of mass surrender event like we saw from the Shah's army back in 1979, when they did kind of lay down their arms en masse. So it's happened before. Maybe we'll see it again.
What kind of pressure do you think Congress is going to put on the president about this?
The midwit, dishonest response that we're hearing from Congress. I'm not talking about the radicals like Bernie Sanders and Rashida Tlaib, but people like Gene Shaheen and a lot of other Democrats and some Republicans is, here's the line. And I want everyone to understand how much of a BS line this is. Well, I'm glad the Ayatollah has been taken out, but President Trump must inform us more. Blah, blah, blah. It's baloney. Right. It's baloney. Here's why almost every Democrat member of Congress and a lot of Republicans are compromised by Chinese and Qatari sources. We're not telling you anything. Meanwhile, somebody like Josh Gottheimer, no friend of President Trump, a Democrat in New Jersey, is going out everywhere and saying that the administration did adequately brief Congress. So is Tom Suozzi. Not my congressman, but from my next district over. He's a Democrat from Long Island. He's also saying that President Trump has indeed briefed Congress properly, at least before this attack. So this is a midwit, dishonest. It's just like some of the people talking about ICE saying, oh, well, I think we should get rid of the illegal aliens, but ICE has gone too far, which is the exact opposite of the truth. ICE has been incredibly restrained. President Trump has been incredibly open with the members of Congress that he needed to brief, but he's not going to brief every Tom, Dick, and Harry so they can run back to their Chinese and their Qatari funders and tell them every little detail. That ain't going to happen.
Valid point. And very well said. I completely agree with that statement, Jake. Jake, I want to thank you for joining me. So tell the audience again, WABC in New York City. You can hear it nationwide, but what's the name of the show again?
It's called the NewsHour Weekend Edition with Jake Novak. You can tune in your regular radio if you're in the New York area, but of course there's a free WABC app and the website. You can just click listen live. You can hear it early morning, Saturday and Sunday, but I'm also very often on the channel, whether hosting shows or contributing to shows like I just did with you. So just WABC is a good place. And of course, my Twitter handle is the best place to see everything I'm doing, @JakeNY. That's where you're going to see the links to everything I'm doing at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, we do have that in the banner, but there's no doubt about it. Jake, you are an expert in this field, and I could see why you're in so much demand. And I really want to thank you for joining me. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to Jake at WABC. Check out the app, download it, listen to him every Sunday. Jake, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So on behalf of Jake Novak, I am Todd Schoenberger. Coming up at 10:30 live, we have Maria Gillespie-Dreyfus. She's a board member for ExxonMobil. She's going to tell you what Exxon's response is going to be with the war in Iran. Until then, take care.
Access real-time data and intelligent analytics exactly when you need them. Get the right data at the right time. Learn more at quotemedia.com.
We're the economic modern family. Watch the flow. Market vibes tell you where the trends might go. We're the economic fam, guiding the scene. From the streets to the screens to your trading machine. Tap in, stay tuned. Feel the beat line, cause the market tells a story through the family line.
There's more happening behind the headlines, and you deserve the full story. At Biz Talk Today TV, we break down investing, government moves, entertainment business, and even sports gambling, all in one place. Real conversations, smart insights, content that helps you think smarter and stay ahead. Thousands are tuning in. Don't miss what's next. Subscribe now to Biz Talk Today TV on YouTube and join the conversation shaping the future.